Rylan Ward wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned back against the cool metal wall of Horizon Point Station. He had been working for 12 hours straight, repairing the maintenance drones that kept the station's outer hull in good condition. Most humans found the job tedious, but Rylan loved challenges. For him, engineering was more than work. It was art, a puzzle where the pieces often refused to behave. Horizon Point was not a large station, but it was one of the busiest hubs in the neutral trade lanes. Traders, diplomats, and travelers from hundreds of species passed through its docking bays every day. Among the crowds were some beings Rylan had only ever seen in holo recordings: tall reptilian diplomats, floating jelly-like creatures, and a few species that radiated soft energy fields. Humans were outnumbered, but engineers like him were respected because their skills could fix almost anything. The station's PA system crackled, interrupting his thoughts. "Attention all engineering staff," the voice announced, flat but urgent. "We have an incoming vessel from the Valkara Empire. It has sustained critical damage and will dock in Bay 7. All hands prepare for emergency inspection." Rylan felt a jolt of excitement. The Valkara Empire was known across several star systems. Their fleets were massive, their ships almost alive with energy, and their Queen Syraxis was feared and admired in equal measure. No human had ever been allowed to touch her ships before. Even the other species kept their distance, afraid of making a mistake that could anger her. Rylan glanced at the other engineers, most of whom were already moving toward the docking bays. He had a feeling that this would be different from the usual ship repair jobs. He grabbed his toolkit, a backpack full of human-made devices, and headed for Bay 7. The docking bay doors hissed open as the massive ship slowly slid inside. It was unlike anything Rylan had worked on before. The hull shimmered with shifting colors, like liquid metal in constant motion. Energy flowed across its surface in thin veins of glowing light. The ship's shape was elegant, almost organic, and yet deadly. "Status report," one of the senior Valkara officers demanded, their voice calm but cold. "Critical damage to the main armor plating," a human technician replied nervously. "Some microfractures have spread across multiple hull layers. We'll need specialized repairs." The officer cut him off with a sharp glance. "And who will repair it?" Before anyone could answer, a station supervisor stepped forward. "We have one human engineer experienced with hybrid materials. He can attempt repairs." The officer's eyes narrowed. "A human?" Rylan stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "I'm Rylan Ward," he said. "I can repair it. I've worked with several non-human materials before. I can handle this." There was a pause. The Valkara officer studied him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Finally, they nodded. "Very well. Proceed. But remember, any mistake will be noticed by the Queen herself." Rylan approached the ship, marveling at the intricacy of its armor. Unlike human ships, which used solid metal layers reinforced with energy fields, the Valkara armor was alive in a sense. It reacted to impacts, shifting microscopic plates to absorb damage. He could see tiny fractures forming and disappearing, like the metal itself was attempting to heal. But there were flaws, evidence of sabotage or damage that the armor could not fix on its own. He opened his toolkit and began inspecting the first panel. His fingers moved over unfamiliar surfaces, analyzing energy flow, metal density, and microfracture patterns. He realized that repairing the armor required a combination of precise physical tools and subtle energy manipulation. Humans did not have the exact energy tech of the Valkara, but creativity often counted more than raw technology. As he worked, other engineers hovered at a safe distance, whispering among themselves. Some shook their heads, convinced he would fail. Others watched with fascination, unable to hide their admiration for his confidence. Rylan ignored them. He had a problem to solve, and that was all that mattered. Hours passed. The lights in the docking bay flickered occasionally as the station's power shifted to support the Valkara ship's systems. Rylan carefully replaced damaged microplates, realigned energy conduits, and stabilized the armor's self-repair nodes. Each movement required patience and precision. One wrong adjustment could send the armor into a feedback loop, potentially causing further damage. He used small devices he had designed himself, human tools adapted to alien technology. A tiny energy harmonizer helped him balance the flow through the plates. A microfield stabilizer ensured that the energy veins remained steady. Even when the Valkara energy pulses fluctuated, Rylan adjusted the tools to compensate, his mind racing with calculations, predictions, and solutions. During a short break, he observed the armor. He realized that someone had deliberately weakened certain sections. It wasn't battle damage, it was sabotage. Whoever did it wanted the Queen's ship vulnerable. His heart sank for a moment, realizing the political implications, but he quickly focused on the task at hand. He couldn't fix politics, but he could fix armor. By late evening, the last of the micro-fractures had been sealed. Rylan stepped back and watched as the armor shimmered with renewed strength. The glowing energy lines were steadier than ever, and the panels had aligned perfectly. In some places, the armor even looked stronger than before, as if his human touch had enhanced it. The Valkara officer approached him, eyes wide with disbelief. This is perfect. How? Rylan smiled faintly. I just follow the principles of engineering. Every system has a solution. You just need to find it. The officer said nothing, only nodding before returning to communicate with their queen. The news reached Queen Syraxis quickly. She had been informed that a human engineer had personally repaired her personal armor. The queen was known for her temper and her exacting standards. No outsider had ever touched her gear without direct oversight. Yet here was a human, not only touching it, but improving it. Syraxis walked into the docking bay herself. Her presence was commanding. The air seemed to hum with the energy of her being. Guards flanked her on all sides, their postures stiff and alert. Even seasoned engineers felt their hearts beat faster in her presence. She stopped a few meters away from Rylan, studying him with sharp, intelligent eyes. The glowing armor of her ship reflected in her multifaceted eyes, highlighting the careful work he had done. She was silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice that carried both curiosity and authority, she asked the question that everyone had been waiting for. Who repaired my armor? Rylan straightened. The moment felt heavier than any battle he had faced. He could sense the expectations, the fear, and the awe surrounding him. Yet, he did not hesitate. I did, he said simply, his voice calm. The queen's gaze lingered on him, analyzing every gesture, every expression. She stepped closer, her armor gleaming with protective energy. She reached out, letting her fingers hover above a repaired section of the hull. The glow pulsed in rhythm with her examination. How? She began, then paused, as if searching for words. A human understands Valkara engineering? Rylan smiled faintly, shrugging. Humans are good at adapting. We enjoy solving problems. If a system is broken, we figure out how to fix it, no matter who built it. Syraxis studied him longer, her expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. She activated the armor's defense systems. Energy shields flashed across the hull, panels shifted seamlessly, and for the first time in decades, the armor seemed stronger than its original design. The queen's lips curved slightly, a rare smile that her guards noticed but could not explain. She turned to Rylan, her voice softer but still firm. You have remarkable skill. I will want to speak with you further. Rylan nodded, feeling both pride and nervous anticipation. Repairing this armor had been more than a technical challenge. It was a moment that could change how humans were seen by one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The other engineers stepped closer, awe and respect in their eyes. Even the Valkyra officer seemed impressed, though he did not speak. Ryland packed up his tools, knowing that this night marked the beginning of something much bigger. The Queen had noticed him. And in the universe of the Valkyra Empire, being noticed by the Queen was no small thing. As he left the docking bay, Ryland felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had fixed the impossible. He had earned the attention of an alien queen. And somehow, he knew that this was only the first step in an adventure far greater than repairing a ship, an adventure that could change the place of humanity in the galaxy forever. Ryland Ward had barely caught his breath when he was summoned to the station's central command deck. A small escort ship had arrived, one of the Queen's personal couriers, and he was told to be ready to board. The moment he realized the Queen herself might want to meet him, his stomach tightened with nervous energy. Yet he reminded himself that fear was useless. Engineering demanded focus, not hesitation. The corridor leading to the docking bay was unusually quiet, the hum of the station's power systems echoing faintly. He walked with careful steps, toolkit in hand, though most of the equipment he had used on the Valkyra armor was already packed away. Today, he would need only his mind and his presence. Humans were small compared to the towering Valkyra, but he had a strange confidence. Curiosity and intelligence were tools just as important as any wrench or energy calibrator. As the Queen's courier landed in the bay, a faint blue glow illuminated the walls. The ship's surface shimmered like liquid crystal. Ryland stepped inside cautiously. The interior was sleek, organic, and alive in a way that made him marvel. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, almost like they were breathing. He had worked on alien technology before, but this felt different. The ship itself seemed to recognize him. At the end of the corridor, the Queen stood, taller than he expected, with a presence that made him feel both insignificant and honored. Her scales reflected the light from the energy fields around her, shifting colors as she moved. Her eyes were multifaceted, sharp, and intelligent. They studied him carefully, piercing through the layers of his calm exterior. "Human," she said finally, her voice smooth but commanding. "Step forward." Ryland nodded and obeyed. The Queen's guards formed a silent barrier, their eyes never leaving him. He felt the weight of the moment, yet he remained steady. He had faced critical failures on starships before, but now the stakes were higher. One misstep, one wrong word, and it could offend a ruler feared across the galaxy. The Queen approached the repaired section of her armor visible through the open panels of the ship. Her long, clawed fingers hovered over the surface without touching it. Energy pulses ran through the veins of the armor, and she seemed to observe every detail, measuring every repair. "Who repaired my armor?" Her question was soft, yet every word carried authority and expectation. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the room itself waited for his answer. Ryland straightened and met her gaze. He could feel the tension of her guards and officers around them, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "I did," he said. A faint ripple of surprise passed through the Queen. She leaned closer, inspecting the repairs, her attention sharp and intense. A human, repaired it? And it functions perfectly?" Ryland nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. I observed the damage, studied the energy flow, and made adjustments to stabilize the system. It was complicated, but repair is repair. Every system has rules. Once you understand them, solutions appear." The Queen's gaze seemed to narrow, not in anger, but in thought. For a moment, she appeared almost amused by his confidence. "You are bold for one so small in stature, bold yet precise." Ryland smiled faintly. Boldness had its place in engineering. Sometimes you had to take calculated risks to find solutions. But he kept his tone respectful. "I have learned that observation, patience, and adaptation are key to solving unfamiliar problems. I do not take for granted the work of others. I merely try to improve what is broken." The Queen studied him longer, as if trying to understand the strange courage and intelligence of this human. Then, without warning, she activated the armor's full defensive system. Energy shields flared around the ship, and the microplates shimmered and aligned in a fluid motion that Rylan had calibrated. The display was perfect. Even the Queen seemed impressed. "Remarkable," she whispered. "No outsider has ever repaired Royal Valkara armor, and certainly not improved it. How did you achieve this?" Rylan gestured toward the armor. "I combined observation with understanding the principles of engineering. The armor is designed to self-repair, but someone attempted to sabotage it. I reinforced the structure, stabilized the energy, and repaired the microfractures. I used human tools, but the principles are universal. A well-designed system follows logic, even across species." The Queen's eyes glimmered with interest. For a moment, Rylan saw a side of her few had ever seen, curiosity rather than judgment. Her voice softened, almost thoughtful. "You are unusual among humans. Most are small-minded, yet you are clever and precise. You understand systems beyond simple repair." Rylan's heart raced, but he remained calm. "I do not claim to be superior, Your Majesty. I simply observe, learn, and apply what I know. That is all any engineer can do." The Queen leaned back slightly as if weighing his words. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was a rare expression for her, and it sent a ripple of awe through the room. Her smile was not mocking, it was respectful, even admiring. "Perhaps," she said softly, "there is more to humanity than my advisors have claimed." Rylan blinked, taken aback. He had never expected praise from an alien queen. Yet he reminded himself that admiration was fleeting. Respect must be earned daily. "I hope to continue earning it, Your Majesty," he said politely. A Valkara officer cleared his throat nervously, reminding them of the presence of the Queen's guards. But she waved him away. "Enough formalities for now. Human, I will take you aboard my flagship. There is more I wish to show you. And perhaps there is more you can teach me." Rylan felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Boarding the Queen's flagship was unprecedented for a human. He had repaired her armor, but now she was inviting him into her inner world, into the heart of her empire. He tried to focus on the practical, observe, learn, and remain composed. Still, he could not deny the thrill running through him. As they walked toward the launch bay, the Queen's officers whispered among themselves. Some seemed skeptical of the human's abilities. Others, like him, were quietly curious. Rylan noticed the slight tension in their bodies, the careful precision of their movements. He realized he had become not just a technician, but a symbol of possibility. Human ingenuity recognized by one of the galaxy's greatest rulers. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the Queen's flagship. It was massive, even from the station, with flowing lines of energy armor and elegant curves that suggested both beauty and deadly efficiency. Rylan's eyes widened. The ship was unlike anything he had seen. It seemed alive, almost sentient, as if aware of its new visitor. "Step aboard," the Queen commanded. Rylan obeyed, careful to move respectfully. The interior was unlike the docking bay. Smooth walls of glowing energy, floors that seemed to float, and control panels that responded to gestures rather than touch. Humans relied on tools, but here, intention and understanding of energy sufficed. He had never experienced such technology firsthand. "Observe everything," she said. "Every system, every process. You may find that human understanding brings insights even we have not considered." Rylan nodded. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." As they moved deeper into the flagship, The Queen led him to the engineering chamber. The room was vast, filled with energy conduits, floating repair drones, and a library of schematics that shimmered in holographic form. The air vibrated faintly with power, almost humming in harmony with the Queen's presence. "Here is where we maintain the fleet," she explained. "And yet, something is wrong. My armor was sabotaged, and we do not yet know by whom. Perhaps your human perspective can shed light where our experience cannot." Rylan approached one of the holographic displays, studying the patterns of the armor damage. The microfractures had been subtle, almost invisible to untrained eyes, but the sequence was deliberate. Someone had designed the failure to spread slowly, ensuring it would weaken the Queen without immediate detection. "Sabotage," Rylan murmured. "This was deliberate, not battle damage. Someone within your empire wanted to weaken you." The Queen's expression hardened. "I suspected as much. The attackers are subtle and cunning. They seek to destabilize the fleet and my rule, but they underestimated you." Rylan felt a surge of responsibility. He had not only repaired the armor, but now he had to help the Queen uncover a hidden threat. His human ingenuity and adaptability might be the only advantage they had. "I can help," he said. "If I study the systems and compare them with my experience, I may find traces of the sabotage, patterns they overlooked." The Queen looked at him intently, her eyes measuring both skill and courage. "Then you will work closely with my engineers. Together we will uncover the truth. And human, you will be the first to do so." The other engineers in the chamber, Valkara and human alike, looked at him with a mixture of skepticism and awe. None had ever seen a human granted such trust. None had seen a human work alongside the Queen herself. Rylan felt the weight of that expectation, but also the thrill. This was humanity's chance to shine on a scale he had never imagined. For hours, they worked side by side. Rylan studied the energy flows, the armor schematics, and the microfracture patterns. The Queen's engineers watched him closely, taking notes and occasionally adjusting their own techniques to match his insights. Slowly, the first clues of the internal conspiracy began to emerge. The designs had signatures, subtle marks left by those who wished harm. Only a fresh perspective could catch them, and here was that perspective, a human mind, unbound by tradition, seeing what the seasoned Valkara engineers could not. By the time the first light of Horizon Point Station's artificial day filled the flagship's observation windows, Rylan had not only mapped the sabotage but suggested preliminary defensive adjustments. The Queen stood beside him, reviewing the data with a rare expression of satisfaction. "You have done well, human," she said. "Perhaps you are more than an engineer. Perhaps you are a strategist as well." Rylan shook his head, smiling modestly. "I am only a problem solver, Your Majesty. I see what is in front of me and I try to fix it. That is all." The Queen's gaze softened, but it did not lose its intensity. "Then you will continue to help. There is more to uncover, and I trust your judgment more than most. Humans, clever, adaptable, and bold. Perhaps your species has more to offer the galaxy than I once thought." For Rylan, those words were more than praise. They were an invitation to step into a larger world, a world where human skill and ingenuity could stand alongside the might of empires. He realized that this was only the beginning. The Queen's question had opened a door, and beyond it lay challenges, discoveries, and a chance to prove that humanity could make a difference on a galactic scale. As the flagship moved silently through the docking lanes, Rylan prepared himself. The sabotage would not go unpunished, and the conspirators would soon learn that humans were not to be underestimated. And the Queen? She had just discovered that sometimes the smallest and most unassuming species could change the course of empires. The Queen's flagship moved silently through the neutral sector, its shimmering energy hull reflecting the stars outside. Rylan Ward had spent the last several hours studying the Valkara armor systems in the Royal Engineering Chamber, but he was beginning to notice patterns that alarmed him. The microfractures in the Queen's armor had not been random. They were precise, deliberate, and complex. Someone had intended them to fail at the worst possible moment. Rylan traced the subtle energy signatures left behind by the sabotage. They were faint, almost imperceptible, but his human intuition noticed them. Most Valkara engineers would have assumed minor defects or environmental stress caused the damage, but Rylan could see the intentional sequence, a slow, creeping failure designed to weaken the Queen over time. Whoever did this had access to royal ship technology, and likely had inside knowledge. He stepped away from the holographic console and approached the Queen. She was observing the main deck, her eyes focused and intense. She sensed his presence immediately. "Human," she said, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "Have you discovered anything?" Rylan nodded, pointing to the holographic projections. "Yes, Your Majesty, this wasn't battle damage. Someone deliberately sabotaged your armor. The patterns are too precise to be accidental. I believe there's a faction within your empire working against you." The Queen's expression hardened. "I suspected as much. I have felt subtle shifts in loyalty, whispers among certain noble houses, but to act without proof is dangerous. Do you have evidence?" Rylan gestured to the energy map. The microfractures, the energy misalignments, and the bypassed safety circuits all point to intentional tampering. The damage was engineered to spread slowly, making it almost invisible until a critical moment. Whoever did this knew exactly how to exploit your systems. The Queen studied the data, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. "Then we have traitors aboard. And you think they are still active?" "I do," Rylan replied. "And if we don't act quickly, they could attempt a direct attack on your flagship or sabotage your fleet before the upcoming diplomatic voyage." The Queen nodded. "Very well, human. You will work with my elite engineers to uncover the perpetrators. I will allow no further harm to come to me or my fleet under my command." Rylan glanced at the engineering chamber. Several Valkara engineers, initially skeptical of a human, now watched him with cautious respect. They had seen his work on the armor, and his insight into the sabotage was undeniable. One of them, a tall Valkara named Therax, stepped forward. "If your analysis is correct, then this is worse than we feared," Therax said, his voice low. "The Queen's inner circle is compromised. Only an outsider could see it so clearly." Rylan nodded. "Then let's begin. We need to track energy anomalies, review repair logs, and monitor all systems for unusual activity. Whoever sabotaged the armor left traces, and we will find them." The investigation began immediately. Rylan and the Queen's engineers worked tirelessly, scanning every section of the flagship, cross-referencing repair histories, and analyzing energy flow in real time. Rylan suggested techniques from human engineering that the Valkara had never tried before, using adaptive diagnostics, predictive simulations, and even improvising small energy devices to detect subtle disruptions. Hours turned into a long, tense day. The Queen occasionally observed from her control seat, silent but vigilant. Rylan noticed the way she trusted him more than any Valkara officer present. She did not question his methods, she only asked for results. By late night, they had uncovered several clues pointing toward the conspirators. The saboteurs were part of a noble faction that resented the Queen's reforms and sought to weaken her before negotiations with other empires. They had infiltrated repair teams and even some of the flagship's automated maintenance drones. "This is clever," Rylan said quietly to Therax. "They planned everything to appear accidental. Microfractures, minor energy disruptions, nothing obvious to alert the Queen or the main fleet. But the timing and location of these damages show a pattern. They want the Queen weakened at a key moment. Therax nodded, impressed. You see what others could not. Humans, perhaps small but insightful. Ryland smiled faintly, not taking offense at the implied underestimation. It is not size, it is observation and adaptability. The Queen's systems are remarkable, but they assume standard operations. Someone thinking differently can exploit that. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red energy pulses swept across the engineering chamber as sensors detected unauthorized access. Someone, or something, was attempting to breach the ship's systems remotely. Traps? One engineer asked nervously. No, Ryland replied, already moving toward the control panel. They're testing the systems, looking for vulnerabilities. They want to see if their sabotage worked and if there's any trace they can erase. The Queen stepped forward, calm, but commanding. Prepare defenses. Human, your insight will guide our response. Ryland immediately began rerouting energy flows, stabilizing critical systems, and isolating affected nodes. Using a combination of human improvisation and Valkara technology, he created temporary shields around the compromised areas. The intruder's signals bounced harmlessly off the reinforced barriers. Impressive, the Queen said, watching him work. You are quick and precise. Humans are indeed unpredictable and valuable. The engineers around him followed his instructions carefully, a mix of skepticism and admiration in their eyes. Slowly, the attempted intrusion was neutralized, but the Queen's suspicion deepened. The attack was not random. Someone on the inside was testing the Queen's flagship defenses. They were bold and dangerous. Ryland turned to the Queen. They are not just saboteurs. They are spies, gathering information for a larger plan. If we do not act, they will strike again, stronger. Saraxis's eyes narrowed. Then we will strike first, but we must do so carefully. The conspirators may have allies we do not know about. The next phase of the investigation involved gathering intelligence across the fleet. Ryland worked alongside the Queen's most trusted officers, reviewing repair logs from other ships, monitoring energy fluctuations, and looking for patterns that matched the sabotage on her personal armor. His human methods, though unorthodox, revealed subtle anomalies that Valkara engineers had overlooked for years. One night, as Ryland adjusted energy monitors, he noticed something disturbing. Several drones, seemingly routine maintenance units, were transmitting hidden signals. They moved with precision, avoiding observation. Their energy signatures matched those of the sabotage tools used on the Queen's armor. These drones, Ryland said, calling the Queen over, they are part of the conspiracy. They are being controlled remotely to sabotage ships in the fleet. If we do not stop them, more damage will occur. Saraxis observed the data, her expression darkening. Then we must act. Human, your analysis is invaluable. You will lead the countermeasure operation. Prepare the defenses, neutralize the drones, and trace the source of the control signal. Ryland felt the weight of responsibility. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, yet here he was, trusted by one of the most powerful leaders in existence. He focused on the task, methodically planning every step. Using a combination of adaptive energy rerouting and predictive logic, he created a trap for the rogue drones. By simulating energy flow that appeared to be a weakness, he lured the drones into a containment field. Once they were trapped, the control signals were traced back to their origin, a hidden communication hub within the fleet, masked by legitimate systems. This is it, Ryland said. We've found the heart of the conspiracy. The Queen's eyes gleamed with determination. Then we act immediately. Human, you will accompany me. Together we will ensure that these traitors are stopped. The operation was precise and swift. Using stealth energy channels, the Queen's flagship approached the hidden hub. Ryland guided the technical maneuvers, disabling security measures and neutralizing automated defenses. They moved like shadows, unseen and unstoppable. Inside the hub, the conspirators were caught by surprise. They had assumed the Queen's fleet would not detect them so quickly. Ryland's analysis of energy patterns had predicted their every move. As the Queen's guards moved in, the conspirators attempted to escape, but the human-engineered countermeasures trapped their ships in energy fields. The Queen watched as the rebels were secured. "Humans," she said softly to Ryland, "your ingenuity has prevented disaster. Your species may be small, but your mind is mighty." Ryland shook his head modestly. "I only applied logic and observation, Your Majesty. The fleet's technology and your leadership made it possible. Humans alone could not have done this." Syraxis's gaze softened, a rare moment of warmth. "Together we have proven that collaboration across species can achieve more than anyone alone. You, human, have earned the respect of my entire empire." As the night drew to a close, the conspirators were in custody, the fleet secured, and the Queen's armor fully restored. Ryland stood beside Syraxis on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The city of Horizon Point glimmered below, and beyond it, the vastness of space stretched endlessly. "You have done well," the Queen said, her tone reflective. "Perhaps this is the start of a new understanding between our species. Your people are capable of great things." Ryland smiled, feeling both pride and humility. "We are adaptable, Your Majesty. We observe, learn, and act. That is how we survive and thrive." The Queen turned to him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "Then we will work together. There are greater challenges ahead, and I trust that your insight will guide us through them." "Human, your place in my fleet is not yet finished." Ryland's heart swelled with a mixture of excitement and responsibility. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, yet here he was, proving that ingenuity and courage could stand alongside the mightiest powers in the galaxy. And somewhere in the shadows, he knew, other threats still lingered. But for now, humanity had made its mark. The first of many victories had been achieved, and the Queen's faith in him promised more opportunities to come. For Ryland Ward, the adventure was only beginning. The sabotage was uncovered, the conspirators neutralized, and the Queen's trust earned. Yet the galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers, and his human mind was ready to face them all. The Queen's flagship floated silently through the vast expanse of space, its sleek energy hull glimmering against the backdrop of distant stars. The threat of the conspirators had been contained, but Ryland Ward knew this was only the beginning. The hidden faction within the Valkara Empire was clever and determined. They would not give up easily, and the Queen's life, and perhaps the stability of the Empire, remained in jeopardy. Ryland stood at the observation deck, examining the tactical displays that floated holographically in front of him. The Queen had granted him unprecedented access to her fleet systems, trusting his judgment completely. Every energy signature, every shield calibration, every microfracture repair log, he had the authority to analyze and improve. For a human, this was the greatest engineering challenge he had ever faced. "Human," the Queen's voice broke his concentration. She stood beside him, her armor reflecting the pale light of distant stars. "We have neutralized the traitors, but they will strike again. They will come with greater force, stronger weapons, and more cunning. Can your species assist in defending my fleet?" Ryland straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, yet here he was, relied upon to safeguard the flagship of one of the most powerful empires in existence. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said confidently. "We can combine human improvisation with Valkara technology. Together we can make your fleet almost untouchable." The Queen's multifaceted eyes gleamed with approval. "Then let us begin. Time is short, and the shadow of our enemies grows ever darker. Rylan gathered a team of the Queen's elite engineers and several human technicians stationed on Horizon Point. Their task was daunting: enhance the flagship's defensive systems to withstand attacks that would overwhelm even the best Valkara designs. He began by analyzing the armor's microstructure. The Valkara used adaptive energy plating that could shift and heal itself during battle. While powerful, it had limits, particularly when facing coordinated sabotage or advanced disruptor weapons. Rylan proposed an improvement: a hybrid shield system that combined the Valkara self-repairing armor with human energy conversion techniques. Using his portable tools and improvisation devices, he created a small prototype on one section of the hull. The system rerouted incoming energy from attacks directly into the armor's structural matrix, strengthening the plates in real time. Essentially, the armor became stronger with each strike, an idea that the Valkara engineers had never considered. "This is brilliant," Therax, one of the Queen's senior engineers, said, examining the prototype. "We would not have thought to convert attack energy into reinforcement. Humans, your minds are truly unpredictable." Rylan smiled faintly. "We adapt, we observe. Sometimes the simplest solution comes from trying something others would never attempt." The Queen watched silently, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, it was with measured admiration. "Then let this human ingenuity guide our defenses. We will integrate it into the flagship and then across the fleet. Prepare for battle." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Rylan and the engineers worked tirelessly, merging human and Valkara technology. Energy conduits were rerouted, shield matrices recalibrated, and weapon systems synchronized with the new defensive protocols. Rylan's instructions were precise, yet he encouraged creative input from both human and Valkara engineers. By the time the Queen convened the Tactical Council, the flagship had been transformed. Its shields pulsed with a new energy rhythm, reactive and resilient. Even if the enemy launched simultaneous strikes across multiple fronts, the armor would adapt faster than conventional systems could anticipate. The Queen addressed her officers. "The human has improved our defenses. What we have now is more than a ship. It is a fortress, capable of defending the fleet even against overwhelming force." Several officers exchanged uncertain glances. It was rare for a human to be praised by the Queen herself, let alone entrusted with military strategy. Yet the display of logic, precision, and innovation was undeniable. Rylan watched quietly, adjusting a final calibration on the energy stabilizer. He felt the familiar thrill of creation, the same satisfaction he had when repairing the Queen's personal armor. But this time the stakes were higher. Success would protect the fleet. Failure could mean disaster. Days passed, and intelligence reports confirmed that the conspirators were regrouping. They had assembled advanced disruptor weapons and were preparing a strike against the Queen's flagship. The attack was imminent. The Queen called Rylan to her private chamber, a space lined with holographic displays of star systems and fleet positions. "Human," she said, her tone serious, "the traitors will strike within the next standard cycle. Are your defenses ready?" Rylan examined the maps and energy readings. "Yes, Your Majesty. The hybrid shields are fully operational. The fleet is prepared. We have also implemented early warning systems that will detect any unauthorized energy signatures, giving us time to respond before an attack reaches critical areas." The Queen's eyes softened slightly, a rare sign of trust. "Then we face the enemy together. Human, your skill and insight have proven invaluable. Today, you will show the galaxy what humanity can do." Rylan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Humans had always been underestimated, yet here he was, standing alongside a galactic ruler, ready to defend an empire. When the enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace, their ships glinted with deadly intent. Disruptor weapons lined their hulls, designed specifically to penetrate Valkara armor. The Queen's flagship advanced to intercept, its new hybrid shields glowing with energy. Rylan worked frantically in the engineering chamber, monitoring the energy flow and adjusting shield parameters in real time. The first salvo of disruptors struck the flagship. Energy pulses collided with the armor, but instead of weakening it, the shields absorbed and redistributed the energy. The plates hardened where needed, deflecting and even using the attacks to reinforce weak spots. "This is working!" Tharax shouted. "The shields are strengthening with each hit." Rylan focused on the patterns of enemy fire, rerouting power to the most vulnerable areas. The Queen's tactical commands coordinated with his adjustments, and together they created a dynamic, adaptive defense system that left the enemy astonished. As the battle continued, Rylan identified the source of the enemy's command signals, a massive disruptor carrier leading the assault. Using the hybrid system, he synchronized the flagship's weapons with the shields, allowing counterfire to be both precise and devastating. The carrier's attacks were deflected, its own systems disrupted by feedback, and it was soon immobilized. The enemy fleet faltered, their coordinated attack unraveling under the combination of human strategy and Valkara technology. Ships retreated, their plans thwarted, and the Queen's flagship emerged unscathed, a shining testament to collaboration and ingenuity. After the battle, the Queen convened her officers and Rylan in the central command chamber. The captured enemy ships floated tethered, their systems disabled by human-engineered countermeasures. The Queen's presence filled the room with calm authority. "You have done more than repair armor," she said to Rylan. "You have defended my life, preserved my fleet, and improved our technology beyond what we imagined possible. Humanity, your species is remarkable." Rylan bowed slightly, careful not to appear arrogant. "I only applied observation, logic, and creativity, Your Majesty. The Queen's technology and leadership made this possible. Humans can complement power but not replace it." The Queen regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded. "Then you shall continue to serve as my royal human engineer. Your insight, adaptability, and ingenuity will guide not only my flagship, but the future of the Valkara fleet. Humanity has earned a place in my empire." The other officers and engineers looked at Rylan with a mixture of awe and respect. A human, small and seemingly ordinary in appearance, had accomplished what few Valkara could, improving their technology, uncovering a conspiracy, and defending the Queen against an overwhelming attack. Rylan felt a profound sense of pride. He had not sought recognition, but he had demonstrated that human skill, creativity, and courage could match the greatest powers in the galaxy. It was a triumph not just for him, but for all humanity. Weeks later, the fleet returned to Horizon Point Station. The Queen personally thanked Rylan for his service, presenting him with formal recognition and access to the Valkara archives. It was a gesture of trust and respect, a sign that humans were now seen as capable partners, not inferior observers. "Human," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "You have proven that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity are not limited by size, species, or appearance. You have saved lives, improved technology, and shown that the unexpected can achieve the extraordinary." Rylan smiled humbly. "I only did what I could, Your Majesty. It was an honor to serve." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "Then we will continue to work together. There are greater challenges ahead, and I trust that your insight will guide us through them. Human, what shall we build next?" Rylan looked out at the stars, imagining the possibilities. New ships, new technology, new defenses. Human creativity could push the Valkara Empire further than ever before. "Then we build," he said with quiet confidence, "a future together." The Queen nodded, and for the first time in centuries she allowed herself a relaxed smile. Humanity had earned respect, not through size or strength, but through ingenuity, courage, and unwavering determination. The galaxy had taken notice, and the bond between species had been forever changed. Rylan Ward, the human engineer, had repaired armor, but he had also repaired the gap between worlds, proving that the human mind could achieve greatness among the stars.